Being in Star Trek is an amazing experience. It's a privilege and a pleasure as a fan of the TV show and the subsequent films. To be in it is insane, and to work with people like Leonard Nimoy, who I've known all my life. It's a very Leonard played Spock in the original TV series, which came out years and years before you were born, nearly 50 years ago. Is it? Is it 40? 50? Yeah. Thank you. 48! Asshole! It's amazing to act with a character that you've known since you were a kid. You know, I meet a lot of actors, and I'm always impressed to meet actors I admire, but to be in a scene with a character you've known all your life is a peculiar thing. And so when Leonard looked at me, when we did the first Star Trek, in the first take, he went, "You are Montgomery Scott." I kind of went, and we had to do it again. And I remember a really funny moment. Me and Chris Pine were in a trailer. Leonard and Chris and me were doing a scene, and we were sharing a trailer because it was near the location. And Chris and I were sat in this trailer with Leonard. Leonard is 80-something. He's an incredible guy, so still full of life. But he was tired that day, and he just fell asleep in the chair with his ears. And Chris and I were just sat either side of Spock, who was snoring. Just looking at each other like, what the hell is going on here? But it's interesting that, Vulcans don't emote, but they do snore. And hi, Bree! Yo, Bree! Big shout out to Bree! Oh, finally, a 35-year-old, thank you.
Do you think you could be good at Bilbo Baggins?
Do I think I'd be good at Bilbo Baggins? Well, that accolade goes to my very, very good friend Martin Freeman, who is one of my best friends in the world, and I am the godfather to his son, and he is someone who is a very, a common figure in my life, and I love Martin, and I think that he's one of the greatest actors ever, genuinely. He's currently doing Richard III in London. I'm going to go see that next week. So, yeah. So, I don't think I could do it as well as Martin, because Martin does it better than anybody. Thank you. I wanted to be Luke Skywalker, obviously. And I know a lot of the cool boys wanted to be Han Solo, because Han is the coolest character on the planet. But because I was little and blonde, I wanted to be Luke. But now, I know there are so many cool ones out there. I watched a fabulous film yesterday called The Grand Budapest Hotel. And Ralph Fiennes' character in that was so... it just looked like he had so much fun playing that. At the moment, I would love to play a character like that, but it'll change tomorrow. Tomorrow it'll be the guy from Lethal Weapon 2. Thank you.
Hey, so I just want to say, first of all, thank you for making FantasyCon your very first convention.
Oh yeah, thank you. No problem.
So I was wondering if they brought back, or if there was talk of bringing Star Trek back to TV, would you reprise your role as Scotty? And would you, could I get you to say, I like this ship?
I like this ship. I think TV now is a completely different proposition to what it used to be. I think as it's got closer to cinema in terms of how we watch it, what we watch it on, the aspect ratio has changed, the budgets have changed. It's becoming a more and more attractive proposition for any actor to do, even for film actors who like to do sort of grander things, I guess, or bigger things. It's difficult to say without sounding like I'm being down on TV. I'm not, because TV is an extraordinary medium. But it's tempting more and more serious acting back, which is an interesting thing. So if Star Trek became a TV series, it's something I'd definitely consider. There are some amazing TV shows on at the moment. Game of Thrones. I'm really enjoying Orange is the New Black at the moment. Always keep your options open. I think the thing about TV is that what you do is you then live with a character for a long time. You get to be them for maybe 7 or 8 years. And at the moment, I'm quite happy getting to do lots of different things. But that may change, so, you know, never say never. I'm probably too old to be Scotty after that. Did you say fucking dick? I just had too old to play Scotty, wow. That was a really adverse reaction. It's probably a prequel lover over there.
I think she said Walking Dead.
Oh, Walking Dead. In the acoustics in this room, Walking Dead does sound like fucking dick, I have to say. I apologize to any parents and children in the audience for my language there, sorry.
So, I'm under 10, so you know.
Feet.
So, I was going to ask how you felt about Fable before you were in it, because I've been a huge fan of the franchise for a long time, and I was
Oh, really?
stoked to hear you were in it.
Oh, thank you. I'm embarrassed to say I hadn't played it before until I was offered the role in 3. And a friend of mine was directing it, and she gave me the game to play, and I thought it was a very involving and interesting game. I don't play so many video games anymore because I'm a dad, and I just don't have time. I can't. Whenever I sit down to play a video game, I feel guilty. Even if she's asleep, I feel guilty. So, you know.
I have a second part to my question, too.
Go on.
I wanted to know if you could do your impression of Daft Punk.
Of who?
Daft Punk.
Of Daft Punk. I need the music. Oh, it's my friend from The Signing.
Hi, how
Hello.
are you? So there's a picture that's all over the internet of you playing with a dinosaur with your geek quote attached to it.
Oh, yes.
So at what point in your life did you feel like that applied to you also, where you felt like being a geek is so liberating? Because that's, I mean, obviously inspirational to all of us.
Yeah. I don't know, I've always kind of felt like when you're a kid, you don't think about it at all because it's very natural for children to be as enthusiastic as adults later become in their state of geekdom. And you get slightly older and you realize that you know, you're still in love with something and you still want to talk about it and you still want to dress up like it and watch it hundreds of times. It's the older you get, the more you realize how okay it is to be like that, do you know what I mean? And how you need to celebrate that thing and not feel weird about it. That's why these events are amazing, because we can all get together and just share that love, you know, and it's a brave and it's a very positive thing to just sort of be out about a passion that you have, you know, and not give a shit what anyone thinks about you for it, you know. There will always be people out there who kind of like, oh, what's your problem? When, you know, they probably have things that they're geeky about, you know, sport or whatever. Football or something. But yeah, I think the older I got and the less, and my love of stuff didn't diminish as I got older. I still loved, you know, I was 29 when The Phantom Menace came out, and it still made me that upset, do you know what I mean? So, it was that film. Thank you.
Hi, Simon.
Hi.
I just want to say you're one of my favorite actors, and one of my favorite movies is Hot Fuzz. My question is, we know you're kind of a prankster, and one of well-known is the neutron cream, but I wanted to know, whatever, you know, other sets or outside of set, what is your other favorite prank story?
I'm really not a prankster. I'm kind of like, I work hard when I'm on set, you know, there's not much time usually for messing around. The neutron cream thing happened simply because it just spiraled out of control, and it wasn't just me, it was Pine, and it was the whole makeup department. I was sitting in makeup with Chris, and we were filming at this nuclear facility, and I said, Chris, have you got your cream on? And he's like, what? And I said, well, you know, because you'll get sunburned if you don't wear this cream. I was just saying it as a joke, and then he fell for it, and I kept him going for like an hour. And then every member of the cast subsequently became longer. So Anton, who came then to the location, we kept him going for like half a day, and he was worried because he walked on set, he didn't have it on, and he was complaining of health and safety. And then, by the time we got Zach and Zoe, they were both like, it was like a good morning's worth of, and then we got everybody doing this on set because they had to shake the ions out of their fingertips and stuff. And then when it finally came down to Benedict, you know, well actually it was John and Carl Urban is going to get me so badly at some point because he promised it, and he doesn't. It took him 10 years to get back at Viggo Mortensen, and I know it's going to happen to me, you know. But it was a wonderful thing, and everybody was involved, the whole crew. You know, like Surly Grips, the Push the Dolly, who probably wouldn't ever look at me before, would come up and like do little impros in front of the other actors about neutron cream, and it was this brilliant democratizing thing that just ended up being the most wonderful gag, and I got the blame for it. But the funniest moment was, me and Chris were trying to figure out a way to get out of it, because Benedict was just like, he was so taken in by it that he complained at lunchtime that the reason he'd forgotten his lines was because of all the positive ions in the air. And, he said, I've got a bit of a headache, and a lot of the radiation's just getting to me, you know. And so Chris and I said, we've got to get out of this. We've got to give him the, you know, the knowledge that it's not real. So we wrote this format for him to sign, and it was like, it started out as a consent form about how you know, you have to be, it's like an exemption form, so it said, I, Benedict Cumberbatch, hereby accept that by participating in filming of Star Trek Into Darkness, or Star Trek II as it was then, at the NIF facility in Oakland, California, accept that I have to wear the topical emollient neutron cream, and that it is fake, and I am stupid. So, Ben is all into his, he's channeling Khan and stuff, which I can say now, thank God. He's sort of like into his, and I say, Benedict, you've got to fill this form, we've all got to fill this form out. And he looked at it, he read it, he signed it, and then he gave it back to me. So, if you ever want anything from Ben, just give him a form, he'll probably sign it. It would say, I will come and be your sexual slave for the rest of my life. You guys get that signature, he is bound by law! But that was kind of it, but hopefully there'll be more.
So, I really like your acting, and I think my favorite role that I've ever seen you in is in the TV show Look Around You.
A sleeping god.
And, I was imagining it was probably a pretty rigorous process getting that role, and I was just wondering, what you did to get that role.
It was. I sat on a chair in some armor, and I had a nap, and then somebody woke me up and told me it was finished. But it was very enjoyable.
Is there a process you do go through though when you are selecting a role?
Not really. I mean, I tend to pick things because of, well, two things: the script and who's involved. So. I didn't, when I started working with J.J. Abrams, all I knew him from was Alias. I hadn't even seen Lost at that point. Lost had aired in the US, but it hadn't aired in the UK. And he called me and said, hey, do you want to be in Mission Impossible 3? Because that's the kind of thing, he'll do that, he'll just call you. He doesn't sort of go through agents, you just get an email. I got my Scotty thing, was just an email saying, do you want to be Scotty? And I think it was because he cast a few people and he wasn't finding the right person. I'll ask Pegg, he'll do it. He always says yes. So generally speaking, if it's a good script and if the person, the fellow actors or the director is someone I really admire, that's a big deal, If I don't know the director, it's always got to be the script. Hello, buddy. Okay.
Who did you have more fun playing as, Sean, Nicholas Angel, or Gary King?
That's a very good question. I had the most fun being Gary because I love Gary King. I love him because he's such an ass, as we say, ass. He was the first character that I played who was not that likable, And Edgar and I, when we were writing The World's End, were thinking how funny it would be to write a comedy about a suicidal alcoholic. And it doesn't really lend itself to comedy particularly, and we thought that was exciting. So, and to play Gary was just, all I had to do was go in to work and be annoying every day. And Nick Frost used to literally want to strangle me sometimes, because I would do stuff and he'd go, are you honestly going to do that on camera? And I'd be like, yeah. So I'd say Nicholas Angel was, until the very last part of the film, was the least fun because he's very straight. I don't smile for 40 minutes in that movie, and it's really hard for me because I'm a mug. That's how I make my living, by pulling faces. And I have to be so straight in that movie. And Sean was wonderful, and I always have a big soft spot for Sean, but back then we didn't even know if that film would get released or that we were going to make the day, and it was more of a slightly, you know, we didn't have any real experience in filmmaking, so it was a bit more, I wouldn't say stressful, but a little more uncertain. I look back on it now and I remember what a great time I had, but because The World's End was the third in that series, it was nice to feel that we already had a ready-made, you know, a bunch of people who wanted to come and see that movie, so that was a nice cushion.
Okay, here's my second question.
Greedy.
If you pitted them all in a fight, who would win?
I think probably Nicholas Angel would take down Sean after Sean had knocked out Gary with the cricket bat. Gary can fight when he's drunk, but if he was sober, he probably wouldn't. Oh no, mind you, at the end he's a pretty good sword. I don't know, that would be a good... I'll tell you what, I'll go back and beat myself up and see who comes out.
Hi, I was wondering what you look for in a story or a script before you choose what projects to be involved in.
Just usually good writing, you know. You can usually tell when you pick up a script within the first 10 pages if it's going to appeal to you, or, you know, as a writer myself, I always look for that angle a little bit, and you want to see invention and you know, cleverness and innovation, and just, if something makes me laugh, I respond to it, so, or makes me feel anyway. It elicits any kind of emotional response from me. If it makes me cry, you know, equally it's a sign that it's probably a good script. So yeah, I think you have to be really careful. Sometimes if you read something and you don't feel anything, that's not a good sign. You have to be inspired in some way, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just want to say thanks for coming.
That's
Love your
all right.
movies. Just saw Fantastic Fear of Everything.
Oh, thank you, yeah. That's on Netflix, if you've not seen it.
And so my question involves a video I saw on YouTube, actually.
Oh, God.
Of you and Nick Frost reenacting a scene from Star Wars.
Oh, yes. Which is people dressed up as that today, I saw.
And so I was just curious, like, how often you do reenactments of your favorite movies like that, and like we just, you know, there isn't a cameraman around the film.
Well, weirdly enough, Nick and I became the friends that we are today 20 years ago because I met him through my girlfriend at the time, and we started hanging out. I really liked him, and we sort of clicked. But the moment that we really clicked was we were in an Indian restaurant, and one of us, I can't remember who it was, made the noise of the mouse droid from Star Wars, and it was like, whether it was me or him, just went beep, 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 like that. And I looked across at him, and he looked at me, and there's this kind of chemistry in the air, and everything went into slow motion. And the whole rest of the restaurant disappeared. It was just me and Nick, and Berlin's Take My Breath Away playing in the background. And I knew the way you know about good melon, that he was my boy. But yeah, we've been known to act stuff. We didn't want to do that sketch on that day. We were promoting Paul, and College Humor came along and said, oh, we've got this great script, it's really funny. And Nick and I were like, yeah, right, whatever. Honestly, we were kind of in a bad mood, and we were like, we don't want to, oh, do we have to do a sketch? Can't we just do an interview? Real divas, real horror, you should hate us right now. And we read it, and we were like, oh yeah, okay, that's quite funny. And then, obviously, we got the costumes on, and it was enormously funny. So, big up and huge respect to College Humor for, you know, coming to us with that idea. It was theirs, so we just sort of brought it to life.
I love watching you and Nick Frost and Martin Freeman together. I was wondering if there's any other...
What, together?
Yeah. Anyway, any more. But is there any other actor that you really feel like you've clicked with because of acting with them?
Yeah, I've met people, you know, I've worked with people on jobs and found great chemistry there. You always hope that's going to happen. I really love my Star Trek friends, you know, they're a really great bunch of people. I came to that group as the oldest cast member, and I didn't know any of these kids, you know, they were all sort of like, I thought they might be all sort of young Hollywood and a bit weird and, you know, sort of needy and all the myths that you understand that young actors are like, they're not true. And they're not. They're a really sort of cool, very collaborative, lovely bunch of people, and I love every one of them, and I've made great friendships with them just by being on set with them, you know. So I'd say definitely the crew of the Enterprise, they were very well chosen, I think.
Tell me about working with Kristen Wiig.
Oh, Kristen, yeah, I love Kristen Wiig, who was played Ruth in Paul. Man, she is the funniest human being on earth. I kind of like, she makes me laugh. So we had so much fun on Paul. Just between takes, we had a lot of songs. Me, Nick, and her wrote a lot of songs on Paul, like show tunes. I can't tell you any of them because they're all really obscene. But she was a hoot and is an incredibly gifted actress. You know, and I think she's a brilliant actress, let alone her comedic talents, which are extraordinary. But yeah, I made a great friend in Kristen as well. You know, she's awesome.
Hi Simon. Just first of all, I want to say I was at the screening of The World's End at Comic-Con last year.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I sat 4 seats away from you.
With Bill Paxton was there, wasn't it?
With Bill Paxton, yes.
That was so cool. He was going, oh man, oh man. It was great.
Yeah, so I was starstruck then, but this tops that. So I just wanted to find out, Spaced is one of my favorite shows of all time. I mean, it just seems like you and your friends just kind of got together and decided to dig around for a while. So I wanted to find out how that idea came about, how it got made, and just kind of the process there.
Yeah, that kind of basically is what it was. I met Jess Stevenson, now Hines, on a TV show in '95, and we just really clicked. There's another actress that I immediately sort of like gelled with, and then I was in a show on the Paramount Comedy Channel, which became Comedy Central in the UK, called Asylum, which Edgar Wright was directing, and we were missing an actress, so I suggested to Edgar that Jess come along. So we did this show Asylum. I think you can see it on YouTube. It's very rare. It'll never be on DVD or anything, I don't think. But because we worked well together in that, the TV company said, do you want to make a TV show? Or can we make a vehicle for you two? And we said, yes, that would be great, but could we write it? Because we had these ideas. There were a lot of sitcoms for like 20-somethings on TV at the time that weren't really saying anything to us as people. The British ones, I loved Friends. Friends was great, but I didn't know anybody like that. I didn't know anyone that good looking, or I didn't know that there could be 6 people that good looking in the same area. It seemed ridiculous to me. The chances were just too ridiculous. But particularly the British shows were just being written by 50-year-olds who had no idea what 20-somethings were into, and I really wanted to make a show that spoke directly to a very small group of people rather than trying to appeal to a lot of people. And so did Jess, and we love shows like Northern Exposure and the X-Files, obviously, just shows that are fundamentalized by a sort of relationship that's like will they, won't they, which is always a really dynamic thing to watch. So we figured, let's put that at the center with Tim and Daisy, and then build out from there. And I really wanted to express my sort of geekdom a little bit through Tim. And it's very interesting that going back to, I know I've gone about it all the time, but the Phantom Menace came out just after we finished shooting the first series of Spaced, and before it went out. So there's a little, when they watch the trilogy, in one of those episodes, there's a thing that goes up that says 3 good Star Wars films later. That was put in after, because I'd just come back from New York crying, and yeah. But it was very much us sort of just, doing our own thing. We were allowed to get on with it. Edgar came in because he was just this insanely gifted guy who was clearly going to be a film director one day, and we needed to get him immediately while he was still, small enough to do a tiny, low-budget Channel 4 sitcom. And it just happened, and I look back on it very fondly. I'm very sorry we never got to do a 3rd season. It wasn't because they didn't want it, they did want it, but time and circumstance and Shaun of the Dead, it just changed things a little bit, and then getting back together again just became harder and harder. And now, there'll never be more Spaced because we'll never get Edgar back to doing something as small as that. He's a film director, he always has been, and he should be directing films. He's one of the best at that, and we can't make Spaced without Edgar. So, but thank you for I love that people have seen it here, that's great. Hey.
First of all, it's a privilege having you here with us today.
Thank you.
But my question is, can we expect any more films from you and the team that made the Cornetto trilogy in the future?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Without a doubt. I think the only reason those 3 films became a sort of thematic trilogy, really, over the time is because we were dealing with certain things that were interesting us. You know, those films are bound by a specific criteria. They're all set in the UK, they're all set now, they all adopt a specific genre, and they're all about the kind of individual versus the collective. That's what connects those three films. The next film we do together won't have to be bound by any of those things, you know. And we're already talking, I'm going to see Edgar tomorrow, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about our next film tomorrow.
Which of those three films would make a great musical?
I think Shaun of the Dead would make a great musical. I say that when I first came to Los Angeles to sort of have my meeting with my, you know, the US agent as this kind of very parochial young English boy sort of out in LA thinking, oh, this is very strange. In this huge boardroom full of like suited guys and girls, and they all said hello, and then this one guy said, Simon, Shaun of the Dead, the musical. And I literally went, fuck off. Thinking that he was joking, and he wasn't. So the whole place just went completely silent, like they thought they'd really offended me. But that's how we say hello in the UK, you know, it's our way of, you know, it always makes me laugh, like the C word here is so bad. It's so bad, and I think it's because it's slightly more misogynistic here. It's more, it has a nastier edge. In the UK, it's like, hey guys, how you doing? You know, it's something you say to your friends. I call my mum it sometimes. You know? If we're playing Jenga and she like gets a cheeky one out, I'm like, oh mum, you. She is that too.
Just mentioning Edgar, I want to say, obviously, I'm a huge fan of him. I think he's absolutely one of the best artists in Hollywood right now.
Agreed.
As one of the few handful of people who's actually read his Ant-Man script, is there anything you can tell us about that? And if not, can you kind of let us know, unfortunately, what we're going to be missing out on?
I don't know if that would be fair. You know, it was written by Edgar and Joe Cornish, both of whom are superb writers. It was a really fun script, and you know, things just didn't work out. And I'm very proud of Edgar for, you know, sticking to his guns and walking away. And also, you know, Marvel, you know, obviously want something that they want, and they should be respected for kind of like ensuring that their sort of, you know, the brand specificity is maintained. So these things happen sometimes. I know it's amiable, and it just had to be the way it is. Edgar's script was very fun, and it was very much an Edgar Wright movie. So, you know, them's the breaks, I guess.
Hi. I saw you on All-Star Celebrity Bowling.
Yes. We kicked their asses.
You did. I was very impressed, if you forgot to know.
Yeah.
But Nick did this, like, he was covered in cobwebs.
Oh, the cobwebs thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious. I was wondering what your favorite impression that he's ever done is.
With Nick? Oh.
Yeah, and what your favorite impression to do is. And of course, I will ask you to do it if possible.
I couldn't possibly, the stuff that passes between Nick and I is only for Nick and I. You know those things you have with your friends where if you were seen doing them in public or heard by anybody, you would be arrested? Nick, actually, the character of Mike that Nick plays in Spaced was an impression that he used to do for me when we were kids, and he'd kind of like, I say kids, like in our early 20s, he would do this sort of slightly weird kind of military character, and I said to Nick, can I have that and put it in the show, and you can play him. And that's how Nick became an actor. So I have to say Mike is my favorite of his impressions because it led to him leaving the food serving business and entering the people serving business. And you know, that changed my life significantly. So as for mine, I don't know. Maybe Michael Caine probably, which is we always do a thing on our DVDs of myself and Michael Caine speaks like this.
So I just love Hoffa. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Thank you.
And that moment when you ride into town on the horse, just covered in guns and stuff, it just looked like that whole scene would have been a blast to make. So my question for you is, what was the most fun scene to shoot for you in that movie, or just in all of the movies that you've made?
I've had so many kind of like great scenes. The last part of Hot Fuzz, the big high octane action sequence, was a lot of fun to shoot. We did a lot of running around and banging. Banging? That sounds bad. We did a lot of banging during the making of Hot Fuzz, but we were popular guys. What are you going to do? But my favourite thing I think I shot was in World's End, the fight in the Beehive pub, which was a huge, great big sprawling fight that was all set to 20 Seconds to Comply by Silver Bullet, and just all that, working with Brad Allen, who was our fight choreographer, you know, getting to do some, what we call pub foo, which is this fighting style, where we figured like, if you get really drunk, you remember things from wrestling, and you remember things you've seen on the TV, and somehow you become really proficient at it, and that was our kind of like, that's what happens in the World's End. That shoot, and the fight in the bathroom as well, was just great fun. So yeah, I like fighting, but not for real, that's bad.
Now we're going to have time for just a couple more questions.
Sure.
Hi, Simon.
Hi.
My question is that, since this is your first panel,
yes.
What question would you like us to ask you, or do you have a question for us?
Wow, what question would I like you to ask me? Well, no pressure. I don't know. There have been so many lovely questions today that I think I'm fully sated. I think I'm absolutely full of questions. And but for you guys, let's not talk about me. What do you think about me? Wow, there's loads of you. Seeing you all. Okay. Thank you. Did you tweet a picture of that t-shirt earlier on? Did I see that on Twitter? Yes, I did. I knew. I do see some people sometimes. Good. I'm not a complete... Hello there.
Hi, Simon. I'm Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. Always, our sort of mantra, myself and Egg, has always been write what you know. And I think if you are a writer, it's always good to start somewhere where you're comfortable, you know, where you have knowledge and awareness, and you can write about it with honesty. I think that's a really important thing. When you start guessing how people feel or what makes people laugh, you start to go wide of the mark, you get it wrong. Always go for what makes you laugh, what makes you sad, what makes you entertained. Start there, and you know, The Hot Fuzz was the hardest film to write for that reason, because we had to go and research with the police, we had to hang out with the police and learn it. For Shaun of the Dead, Nick and I have been sitting on the sofa talking about zombies for years, so we didn't have to, you know. And as far as the World's End concerned, you know, prior to, I don't drink actually, weirdly enough. This is something quite a myth. People think that I'm a big drinker. I'm not. I haven't had a drink for like 4 years. But I think it's just like AA. I'm Simon, and a lot of that heart in the World's End was, you know, was very raw and very real, and I think it's always good to talk about what you know, and then you'll connect with people. That was always our thing with space, is that if we could make one person sort of go, oh my God, I feel exactly like that, or I feel that way, it's much better than making a million people go, eh. Do you know what I mean? I'd always much rather one person be... There are references in space that are so obscure. There's a reference in space to like Scully's dog in the X-Files, which we knew that like only a handful of people would get it, but those people would be so fucking pleased with themselves. It's worth it, you know. So yeah, be true, I think is the key. My language has been really terrible there.
Well, hi Simon. I'm going to bring us down a notch.
Go on.
Because we've been talking a lot about the comedic aspects here. But Gary King is he's a wonderful character, because not only can he be comedic, but he has this background that a lot of people really do struggle with.
Yeah.
And his creation is really important to me, because we lost someone May of this year. And I wanted to know what part of Gary and what part of his creation made The World's End what it is.
Well, as I said earlier, you know, I think and I wasn't being flippant, but we thought it would be a challenging thing to make a comedy about someone who was essentially very sick. You know, Gary is an addict, and he's deeply, deeply unhappy. You know, all his bravado, all his kind of Flair is all about fooling himself and fooling his friends and thinking that he's okay, and he's not okay. You know, he's dying, and I think it was a real key issue in the film to keep that intact and have. I know addicts. I have friends who are addicts, and I've seen people suffer because of addiction, and it's a terrible, terrible disease. It's often overlooked. Often people look down on it because they think, oh, it's your fault, but it's not. You know, it's an illness, and I think that it's something that is. It's either addressed in very sort of like, you know, serious drama. It's rarely addressed in a populist form. And we figured doing it as a comedy and smuggling it in, as we often do, you know, with stuff. I mean, you know, Shaun of the Dead is a comedy, but he still has to shoot his mom. You know, there are still very, you know, I mean, albeit metaphorical growing up, he still has to go through that trauma. And with Gary, even more so, it was something that was important to us to kind of make his suffering very, very real, and underneath all the comedy there'd be this terrible secret, and you don't find out what that is until the end. And I think when you watch the film again, because we always want people to watch our films more than once, it's important, we build them to be watched several times. There are things that you won't spot the first time, because you won't be able to spot them unless you know exactly what happened. When you go back and watch it again, and you see, and you know all this time Gary's wrists are bandaged for this whole film, it changes how you look at him. And it also hopefully makes you realize that sometimes if there's someone in your life who's a pain in the ass, maybe there's a reason for it, do you know what I mean? So that was just creating a real character was important to us. I'm sorry for your loss.
I do know this, that there are 3,000 people in this room that would go on a pub crawl with you.
Yeah, we'd have to drink sparkling water. That's my tipple.
Let's go.
Simon, we really love you.
Thank you.
And my daughters and I, we love you a lot. Since you know Benedict, since you know Martin, is there any chance that you'll do a guest starring role?
A villain.
As a villain? Well, I would love to do that. That would be something I'd be very honored to do. You know, I love that show, and I love both those guys. They're great to work with. You know, and it's such a popular show, such an auspicious gig to do. Of course, if I was asked, I would do it in a heartbeat, of course. But, you know, as a fan, it's still, I often get, I remember when I watched Star Trek the first time, the first film, and Scotty doesn't come into it for like 70 minutes, and I was enjoying it so much, and then when I came on, I was like, oh. Because it kind of popped me out of it, you know. I was like, so sometimes it's not good to be in the things that you love, but of course I love being in Star Trek, but I'm very lucky in that I get to be in these things which I'm a fan of, you know. It never is lost on me how lucky I am to sometimes participate in these things. So you never know.
Simon Pegg, everybody. And we're gonna please get some love, please.
Thank you very much.
Can we have the house lights, please? And we're gonna do what we did yesterday. Simon, we want you standing right there looking this way. Our official photographer's going to everybody to gather around the stage right
Let's do a big selfie.
Let's do it. Ready? I'm going to count down.
Get in, get in.
And in 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to do one with them too. Come on, Simon. My friend.
Thanks, guys.